I'm aware of all the jokes I made. I'm not somebody who's doubling down and being like, like I get why I was canceled. I'm not angry about it. It was really hard to go through it, but I also understood why it was happening. Like I wasn't somebody who was like, what? I made an apology video because I felt so bad about stuff, and then I got canceled after the apology. So it was kind of it was just interesting how it went down.
After the apology video.
So the apology video, because more people have been watching my stuff, and I think they had no idea about the sketches and like all the old videos and Shanae and all that. So I think that kind of was, people being like, wait, what? And then they went back.
Hey guys, this is my new girlfriend, Shanae. It is very nice to meet all y'all motherfuckers and hoes. Well, isn't she classy? Thank you. So,
to the party with my crazy pink wig, but I can't get through the door because my booty's too big.
Blackface was specifically created to dehumanize Black people. It was used as a way to create wildly inappropriate stereotypes by white people about Black people and portray them as violent, savages, ignorant, dangerous, and really just kind of justify their mistreatment.
First of all, I'm not racist. But this video is not me defending myself or telling you why I'm not racist and I love Black people, guys. It's not that. This video is me apologizing because I understand why some people think that. Over the last, God, I've been on YouTube for a long time. Over the last like 7 years, I've once in a while, once a year, I get kind of bombarded on Twitter with, Shane's racist, and they'll post screen caps and blog posts and all these things, and I ignore it, and I just say, I'm not racist. So I ignore it.
But as for being in the beauty world, I can't take the drama anymore, and it's not how I am wired, so I'm out. It's draining, exhausting, depressing, and sometimes amazing, but for me, the amazing is outweighed by the bad. I can't have a pit in my stomach every day waiting for the next scandal or the next expose video. It's going to give me health issues, and I'm done caring about it anymore. I was rooting for Shane on this one. I feel like a fool for saying this stuff now. I feel like an idiot. Because I remember when there was I don't remember who said it, but somebody was like, Shane, like, you came out with this palette, we haven't seen a single makeup look from you. And that's when he announced Shane Glosson. That's when he was like, this is where I'm gonna be uploading my makeup content. I'm gonna be doing makeup tutorials, I'm gonna be doing makeup videos. This is where I'm gonna do that. And we've all been waiting. Everybody's been waiting for a makeup tutorial from you, my guy. You cannot be like, I'm out now. You weren't ever really in it. Like,
if you've been watching me for a while, then you know that I have done a lot of things in my past that I hate, that I wish I could make go away, that I try to make go away by deleting videos or untagging my Instagram things or literally doing whatever I can to pretend like those things didn't happen. Because yes, I apologize for a lot of them, but I'm 31, almost 32. Those apologies suck. I don't know who that person is anymore. Every apology video I've ever made has been from fear. It's me sitting at home thinking the whole world hates me and crying and hyperventilating and then just turning on a webcam and just saying I'm sorry and then hoping people know I'm a good person and then it'll go away.
Hi everyone, it's me again. And today we are going to do another installment of the Rhetoric of series, particularly focusing on Shane Shane Dawson, and the recent bizarre shift in reality around what went down in 2020 with Shane. And I just want to kindly and formally remind everyone how we got here. Before we get into it, links, source, ways for the channel, all that kind of stuff, all down below, including a link to my YouTube members and patrons. By the way, I have, like an hour ago as of filming this, uploaded a members exclusive video talking about Lolcow Bust and Keemstar. So that is available for you. I do those somewhat frequently as long as the topics arise. And also I have an email below to suggest content. Thank you to my current members and patrons. Names on the screen. All right. So, y'all, we got to address the slight elephant in the room. What would be a slight elephant? Hippo? The hippo in the room? So, this is the first installment of the Rhetoric of that I've done in quite some time. I think the last time I did it was, I don't even know if I did one in 2025 at all. I can actually check. I should probably have just checked before I started running my mouth. So the last one I did was 3 years ago, 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 2 years ago. Oh my God, this is not looking good. 3, 2, 2, 2. It seems like the last one is the Rhetoric of Anna Paul, which I did in 2025. That was around April. I think that might actually be the last one. So it's been pretty much a year. So the last time I did the Rhetoric of was I did one of them last year. So this is not good. Point of the matter is, yeah, it's been a while. And I'm sorry about that. I want to address kind of why that is in case people are curious. The environment online, particularly in terms of criticism in the past like 2 years, has really shifted into like a very volatile space with big creators leveraging their audience for like harassment campaigns and or using their wealth to needlessly be litigious. So my concern with making these videos is all because I never believe in like punching down. I'm never gonna make videos on people who are like really small creators, like or smaller than me in any capacity. Like if I'm making these big like quote unquote like expose videos, like I'm doing it on people who are like very powerful and have prominent audiences, right? So there have been many topics and people that I've thought about doing it with, like in terms of like creating these videos. And then I'll begin to like look into them, and it's like, oh, the other creators who are covering them are getting doxxed or getting harassed, like people are slandering them to like this absolutely multitude, like a higher multitude than that creator's video could have ever even been put forth in the first place. And it is literally just like, and it's always the smaller, like kind of more vulnerable channels that this happens to. I'm not afraid of responses per se. What the issue comes with is that these people or their audiences, which is usually encouraged by that creator, will want them to like to leverage that audience. So I just haven't really been able to like figure out who I want to talk about in a way that will keep me sane, because yeah, so that's kind of why that is. If anything else comes up soon, I don't know. I also, yeah, and then in terms of videos in general, I think I'm going to do a quick little video this week too, hopefully. Cheeky little video on Drewski, because that was kind of fun. So, for those of you who are new to the Rhetoric of series, it is not a full-length history of a creator. Rather, I'm focusing on key points of controversies and their responses to it. For each section, there will be somewhat of like scholarly analysis intertwined inside. My friend Elle worked on a document for this video. We were going to film it together, and then I just could not find the time. So I'm still going to put her writing piece in the description, and I use some of the links to find stuff, but essentially the script is just like what I'm thinking. But yeah, so those are there for you. I also will link the Dramageddon 3 document, because that is the Dramageddon that Shane got canceled in. I will also link that video so that we can have kind of more specific coverage to like that event at that given time. So 3 parts of the video today. Part 1, quick history of Shane Dawson and the apologies. Part 2, banging out podcast and image rehab. And part 3, pro Shane TikTok. So let's get right into it. Part 1, a quick history of Shane Dawson. By the way, also, if you want a not quick history on Shane Dawson, another thing that I used in the creation of this video, I've been doing this script for over a month, like good God help me please, is is the Nikki Cameron Shane Dawson series. So those are really good. Those I will also link in the description. So Shane has had a lot of different eras on YouTube, being one of the first creators on the platform, and has sort of kind of been part of the creation of the landscape for creators such as himself. Shane has put out many different types of content, spanning from sketch comedy used incredibly lightly here, I feel like, with characters that are like ghetto black women, via Shanae, using puppets to depict sexual scenes regarding children, bizarre conspiracy videos that sought to throw anything at the wall that stuck, several failed podcasts, redemption arc documentaries for some of YouTube's most deplorable characters, and then kind of making wholesome Chungus content with Ryland. Take a shot every time, and don't actually, because you might pass, every time I say wholesome Chungus in this video, because for some reason, it's the only word I can use to describe, like, the, like, kawaii desu vibe that Shane Dawson. And I know I'm using that wrong. The uwu thing that Shane's trying to do here throughout his like personality and the adaptation of his characters. So wholesome Chungus is the word that I've landed on, and now we're gonna have to deal with that, I fear. So the reason why I wanted to talk about Shane in general, this video also has had like 5 different versions. This was just gonna start with a banging out podcast reaction where I was gonna be like, actually about shit, but it developed into like what it has kind of become, because I'm realizing like the seriousness of some of the topics that Shane was just blowing over. So with the sudden release of the Epstein files, a lot of people on TikTok who were sort of aware of the conspiracies started thinking that there was a conspiracy around Shane Dawson being canceled. And then Shane Dawson has started doing some like saving face interviews at the same time to kind of land that return. And I just think that this is not a person who should be able to be doing that, frankly. Many seem to have forgotten that Shane has been unable to escape controversy for the entirety of his career, with several apology videos coming out over the nearly 2-decade-long career, and 2020 was just sort of the one that kind of stuck and had a more consistent effect on him. So, Shane Dawson's first cancellation came in 2014, with creators questioning why a white man doing blackface was able to bolster such a career that he has. And low-key being giving like people core to in a lot of these videos, and the absolutely atrocious, not cool movie that needed to be answered for as well. Shane Dawson mentions in these apology videos somebody named Franchesca Ramsey quite frequently. Franchesca Ramsey is a black creator who was kind of doing more prominent like social media work and was making YouTube videos and stuff. I'm going to see if I can pull her up on Twitter. I believe she said that I think she just doesn't really make content anymore. So yeah, it just says TV writer, producer, and actress. So it seems like she has sort of kind of like escaped the, YouTube verse, but also just hasn't been active on Twitter in any capacity since late 2024, which would sort of make sense in terms of the Elon Muskification of it all. So yeah, I don't really know what's going on with Franchesca Ramsey necessarily now. I'm sure some of you are more up to date with her, but she used to kind of make like culture content, articles, YouTube content as well. And she made a video titled "Here's Why Racism's Not Just Comedy," where she talked about racism comedy in the YouTube space and the idea that she was kind of inspired by the prank YouTuber Sam Pepper getting banned from VidCon. She talks about how Shane Dawson's fan base weaponizes race, and that she can critique the content impact of comedy and stereotypes as it extends beyond the content.
And it really just kind of perpetuates a lot of negative stereotypes about black people, which then the comments are filled with lots of racism and just really gross stuff. In addition to content creators doing blackface on YouTube, using slurs, and having characters based on stereotypes about people of color. This is a really disturbing trend, and it's one that a lot of people aren't talking about, and a lot of the people that are doing these things are getting lots of praise in the community, lots of viral hits, lots of opportunities, and are collabing with lots of people. And the Tumblr community was like, what the heck, why aren't people talking about this? I lent my voice too, and I said that I also agreed, and I thought that it was really important that we nip this in the bud, and I really wanted to see some of those same big YouTubers who spoke out about sexual do the same when it comes to normalizing racism here on YouTube. When I first got involved in this conversation on Tumblr, I made the choice not to name names, and then at some point I made the mistake of sharing content from a specific creator who has been very much guilty of this throughout their 8 years here on YouTube, and that person has a ginormous fan base of over 10 million subscribers on YouTube, and I think upwards of 2 million on Twitter, and a lot of those fans include really young teenagers, which is a big part of why it's so upsetting that this has become normalized for that audience, and a big part of why I wanted to talk about it. Now, at no time did I ever use names or slurs to describe this person or attack them in any way, shape, or form. That's not how I roll. I will totally admit I am a very sarcastic person online and off. I try to use my sense of humor, especially when I'm talking about sensitive and difficult subjects, to make it easier for me to talk about, and so I definitely did that, but in no way did I ever advocate name calling or assaults on this person's character or anything of that nature. Instead, I decided to critique the content and not the creator, and that content includes jokes about rape, child abuse, domestic assault, racism, slurs, and also really inappropriate comments about Trayvon Martin, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks.
And what's interesting is she sort of talks, and I don't know, now maybe there's 3 possibilities with this. Maybe 1, I'm a hater, 2, I'm mean, and 3, I'm missing something. Because Francesca talks a lot about kind of like criticizing the person but not the content, or sorry, the inverse, critiquing the content, not the person. I'm like, girl, we could do both. Racism with Shane Dawson was really just the tip of the iceberg. The Nikki Cameron Shane Dawson deep dive, as I've mentioned, goes into this in much more detail, but Shane was also painfully sexual in videos with anyone in his vicinity, including minors, strangers, and his own mother. The extent in which his mother was involved with this too is like so much worse than you'd think, including showing censored naked pictures, watching pornography, and making sex noises with his mother on camera, edited, scripted, uploaded to YouTube.
Here in a lot of his older content with videos like My Mom Reacts, where Shane relishes in making her extremely uncomfortable.
Hey, what's up, you guys? You know what time it is. Time to make my mom really, really uncomfortable.
Talking about things like her nudes, her pussy, and even watching porn together. The list goes on. Just some weird ass shit.
Oh my god, nude pics. Oh, I'm on your dating profile site. Sorry. I just click out of there.
And it's not even like a one-sided thing that Shane is like foisting upon her. She absolutely plays into this behavior and enables him.
Katie wants to know, what's your favorite sexual noise?
Is it coming out of my mouth or whose mouth?
I don't know whose mouth it's going in or coming out.
Which I guess isn't surprising since she raised him.
And many people also know that Shane Dawson made movies through the 2010s. If you're not aware, there are so many commentary videos, especially that came out in 2020, where people reviewed at length all of the different movies. I know I never did it, as an example. The movie that most are familiar with is called Not Cool, which is supposed to be a sort of like teen comedy that was Shane Dawson attempting to legitimize himself as a Hollywood creator, like a filmmaker. And it was just like horrible, raunchy, cringe, and dumb, poorly written, poorly directed, poorly filmed. Everything's about it is bad, pretty much. I gotta be honest with you. Shane Dawson wanted to be perceived as a legitimate creative, and this has been consistent throughout his entire career and is the case now. With these films, he was hoping to express somehow this legitimacy through scat-eating gags and scary haunted clown cliches. Shane, being on top of the world through these early 2010s, at least in his mind, really shows that contrast in personality to like this, like I said, wholesome Chungus character that he's trying to build. Because I say that with the fact that later, I think it's 2020 as well, but this is like there were so many aspects of the cancellation that Shane Dawson just really skims over. Clips were coming out of the behind the scenes of the Not Cool like filming and how nasty Shane Dawson was to people in his vicinity who were making the content like this movie with him. And he was like very demanding about what they were talking about, and he just like was constantly kind of thinking he was kind of better than everyone despite being the least experienced person in the room.
Somebody out there is a rat and they're going around saying this is the raunchiest movie ever made and it's pissing me the off.
He says, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I've had clients that have gone online, watched Shane's stuff, and said, I don't want to be a part of that.
When I was an actor, I was auditioning for everything. I don't quite understand the logic of being picky when you have no job.
Well, no, but that's the problem. They do have jobs. And one woman in particular who's a professor who's up for tenure.
Well, then why am I saying professors? Where are the actors?
It's a smaller, more limited talent pool than out of New York or LA.
Can't find actors if we can't find crew. Then how are we going to fix this to make Pittsburgh look great? Because Zach Quinto ain't doing anything.
It's been mentioned many, many times that is a problem for people. So if we just like lose that, I'm just saying.
I'm not taking anything out of the movie to please a bunch of out-of-work actors in Pittsburgh who should be lucky to get an audition for a feature film. No director has ever taken anything out of a movie to get somebody to audition. I'm angry that we're finding out about this 2 days before we start filming the movie. I don't know. I'm gonna go.
After the backlash became too much in terms of Francesca Ramsey making the video, people talking about Shane on Twitter, people commenting on the videos with the blackface and how offensive they were, and that kind of build began. This is 2014, still as mentioned, people also not liking the Not Cool movie, review bombing it, etc. Shane Dawson released a video titled My Apology, Blackface and Offensive Videos. This video is still on Shane's channel and was uploaded September 26th, 2014. The one thing I'm gonna give Shane Dawson is at least some of the apology videos and stuff are still up, because that cannot be said for the likes of his diva bestie, Jeffree Star. So that's nice. At least for once, I don't have to hunt, or Tati Westbrook 2 is bad for this, I don't have to hunt through Internet Archive to try to like find the apology videos. So that's cool. So let's summarize this video. Very, very unpolished video with a slew of cliches of apologies, and he very clearly does not want to be there. We're talking the turning the camera on, arm extension situation. The hoodie's not gray. He's a black t-shirt on at least, so that gives us something. And then I literally write, was doing the wholesome Chungus personality even 12 years ago. So when he's responding to videos about how hateful he was to black people in the content that he was making, he's all like, oh my god, guys, like, I promise I didn't do this hateful with hatred in my heart. Like, I was just creating content. Like, that's really the vibe that he's giving. Obviously, I'll interlace clips through as well, like as we go through this. So he tries to clarify that he does not want to do this for money, and he says he does not have to do this, but he wants to. This turns into the creation of content, which, okay, then don't. Let's continue. Then he reads a bunch of tweets that people are talking about in regards to him doing blackface, says it was him up to read these, and then explains that he did not really understand what blackface was. Now, I want to talk about in particular, like, it's not just that, here's the tea too, right? It's not just that he did blackface. It was like he developed a whole universe of like prejudice content and he had like a Shane Dawson cinematic universe of racism. Like, it's not, again, it's just been really frustrating to me how much stuff has been able to be brushed off. So I want to read a section from Me and White Supremacy by Layla. Is it SAD would be Sad? Anyway, it's like this. That's how her name's written. Yeah, so let us go through. I want to read a section about the stereotyping of Black women in particular as it pertains to content. So the section is titled, How Does Anti-Blackness Against Black Women Show Up? Page 89. And I have it on the screen as well. Examples of anti-blackness against Black women include the derogatory and one-dimensional stereotyping of Black women into categories such as strong, angry, servile, sassy, and so on. The Shanae character was extremely aggressive. She's like shooting people all the time. She's like throwing her head like this. That's the sassiness that they're talking about. The underrepresentation of Black women in positions of leadership across industries and community spaces. The underrepresentation of Black women in mainstream media as the protagonist. The disdain and disregard towards Black women's style and beauty in the past, which has now been replaced with the appropriation of Black women's style and beauty as desirable, as long as they're placed on bodies that are not Black. When we're talking about the Shanae character, for example, that is also being highlighted with the sort of like with the hair being all messy and the makeup being all screwed up and everything looking kind of poorly done, is to sort of symbolize this idea of this, like, people would use terms like ratchet or like ghetto in this sort of context as to like the way that Shane Dawson's trying to highlight those stereotypes and to project that. Obviously, I think, like I said, it's like I'm uncomfortable even like outlining like what I'm trying to describe. I think that's always been a super horrible way to describe people. The expectation for Black women to bear the weight of emotional labor of dismantling white supremacy. This continues on the next page and says, the expectation from white women that Black women should choose their gender over their race in the feminist movement, disregarding the fact that Black women are both Black and women simultaneously and therefore affected by both sexism and racism at all times. Very bell hooks core in that particular context. Bell hooks core, I don't even know. That sounds like I'm minimizing things. That's very like bell hooks talks about this a lot. I just read A Will to Change, and then I have, because I always was reading her essays, I was never reading the books, so I got the books too. So now I have All About Love on deck here, and then there's the Feminist Essay Collection 1-2, which I might grab as well. But yeah, so that's that. Tone Bully seeing Black women as too angry or too aggressive to be listened or believed. Shanae in particular, I genuinely think had contributed to that in American society in the 2000s, like because people were saying, Shane talks about this, or it was either Shane or maybe Francesca, people were talking about how there were Black girls that were coming out and talking about how people in their school when they were kids were calling them Shanae as like an insult of like this like perception of what a Black woman should be like. Idolizing and fetishizing Black women's strength, beauty, and culture, touching Black women's hair without their permission, expecting Black women to fit very specific stereotypes and roles, and then becoming confused or even angry when they do not, being unfamiliar with Black women you do not know in an attempt to create an artificial sense of sisterhood, judging Black mothers as being less capable, kind, or loving than white mothers, desiring praise, comfort, approval, acknowledgement, and recognition from Black women in order to feel good about yourself on your anti-racism journey, using Black female friends, partners, family members as tokens to prove you cannot be racist or harbor anti-Blackness. And finally, following a Black woman's leadership only after white people have shown their approval of this Black woman. The one of like kind of putting forth like you have Black friends thing is also very big in this argument, because Shane sort of has that argument in his defense because he had a black friend who was, I wish he was a woman as well, who was doing these videos with him, as if there's no like pressure there, there's no feeling of needing to appease your friends and other such leverage that could be pushed forth at this time. So Shane claims that, if we go back to the video now, Shane claims that he was not trying to do minstrel show blackface, but he was putting on bronzer to look like Chris Brown or Raven Simone. So he's saying that like he's not doing the blackface in the sense of like the black paint with the big like lips and stuff like that, but that he was just trying to be more convincing as portraying himself as a black person.
So honestly, what happened today was I read it. I actually read a blog about me and about all the shit I've done, and I read the tweets. Usually I just ignore them or write something sassy, and I read them, and it really fucked me up and really broke my heart, and I'm glad that it happened, because now I can learn and move on and hopefully help others who are uneducated and ignorant when it comes to this type of shit. Basically what happened was some screen caps were going around and some blog posts about me doing blackface. Now, for those of you who don't know what blackface is something that they used to do a long time ago. White people would, make their face black and they'd paint their lips white and they'd make fun of black people, and it was really cruel and horrible. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't really know what it was up until literally a month ago. I knew the term, but I didn't quite know any of the historical, background and any of that. I just knew in my head, I was like, that's not what I'm doing. Because what I'm doing is I'm playing Wendy Williams, which a lot of the screen caps that are going around are of me playing Wendy Williams and me playing Raven Simone and Chris Brown and stuff. So for me, in my head, I was just like, oh no, I'm just becoming the character. I'm not making fun of them for being black. I'm just looking like that, using bronzer, making myself look like, how are you doing? Like Wendy. Which didn't offend my audience. I never got comments about it. It was fine.
Which obviously, the fact that you think the only way to portray, like, this is the problem that nobody ever seems to understand, and I'm talking nobody, I'm talking whiteys over here, is that, like, they don't understand that the fact that you think you need to look black in order to portray them, like, skin tone wise, that there's no other indicators to look like these people. Let's say if we're talking about if I wanted to do like a Serena Williams cosplay moment, I could wear a tennis outfit. I don't have to do blackface to look like this person, to be able to convincingly like portray this person. And that's kind of what people are trying to get at is, you're not understanding that this is like particular to black people, and also you're not understanding that in doing it that way, that you are kind of saying the recognizable factor of these people who are famous actors, who are whatever famous characters or what have you, is their race alone. Then he said he kind of does like, oh, I'm so stupid and like I don't know anything, I'm so naive, vibe, which is like, he's like, I think he's my age at this point, actually, genuinely. 2014, how old is he now? He said he's like 37 or something. Yeah, he was 25, he's my age. He's literally in this video, he's my age now. That's crazy, actually, I didn't even think about that at the time. Talks about finding he talks about how he finds he found one of the main criticizers of him on Twitter, and like couldn't take the heat and he blocked them. Okay. He talks about how he deleted a bunch of offensive videos. Claims it did not offend his audience and that it wasn't mean-spirited, and this is why he couldn't like come to this conclusion on his own. He said he was raised on offensive comedy. Then he lists a bunch of the people on Twitter that were upset and apologized to them directly, which, I mean, that's sort of something, I guess. And then claimed people reviewed his movies badly because of his YouTube controversies, as if we needed to give yourself any credit in a time where that should be the farthest thing that from what you feel like you should be conducting yourself as at this time. So from here, Shane Dawson does what he does best, moves on. This brought in a new era of more clean mid-2010s content, from collab videos doing like weird things with food and like the conspiracy videos. I say clean with very, very clean compared to blackface videos, right? Because he's still making like pedo jokes all the time on this like Shane and Friends podcast. He's still being raunchy. He's still trying to push the barriers all the time, but then like rejecting all backlash that it could possibly bring. Shane used to follow like a 5 time a week or so upload schedule, which in turn demanded a lot of different ideas for videos. I find that this kind of shows and brought forth a level of desperation with the content that he was making at this time. The conspiracy videos in particular began with more normal stuff, like theories about the Titanic and like flat earth and like these others, like just categorizing popular conspiracy theories. But eventually we got through the basic stuff from just like the upload volume alone. Like he already had kind of talked about all that stuff. Now, I had never watched a Shane Dawson conspiracy video before this. And I kind of just, okay, hold on. Let me see if I can find in my YouTube history, because I have like, my computer's hooked up to a speaker right now. I just want y'all to hear with me the like first couple seconds of it opening, because to me, it's actually crazy. I just want to skip the podcast promo. So first, it also opens with all the conspiracy theories in this video are just theories. I'm not saying that any of them are fact. It is for entertainment purposes, not meant to harm anyone or any company. And it's like a really bad like iMovie screen opener that's like really blurry.
Guys, conspiracy theories of all time. But today we're going to be focusing more on the creepy ones. And we're going to start with the theory that the iPhone might be examining your nudes. Now recently the iPhone...
Oh my god. When I was watching, like, I was like, I just sitting there with like my hands on my face. I was like, because he's also like, and obviously, like, this was meant for a much younger audience than I am now. I have way too much, like, hindsight 2020 on Shane Dawson. I've always thought Shane Dawson's really cringe. I was never really into Shane Dawson. Like, growing up, my friends would show me videos, and I just, like, always was kind of like, ugh, you know, like, not into them. It is, so I'm just, like, not a good audience to be reviewing this. You know, I feel like, please don't have your feelings hurt if you used to like these videos or you do kind of currently like these videos. It is just very funny for me in particular to look at it. That's what I mean, okay? So I've talked about the nature of conspiracy videos when I talked about, I'm actually wearing the same shirt, when I talked about Nerd City. And this in particular was when he was talking to Pyro and Colossal's Crazy and Dolan Dark in the TBH podcast all the time. Shane Dawson in his conspiracy videos would discuss sort of similar subject matter. Now, in the Nerd City video, I go into this in more detail. TLDR on this essentially is that there are a lot of conspiracy theories that are rooted in anti-Semitism that are kind of brought forth through this pipeline. Things like the reptile people, the global economy, like the globalism. There's also kind of other ones talking about like this like ruling class, the Illuminati stuff sort of kind of will lean into that sometimes as well. And Shane Dawson was running these conspiracy videos at the same time as public perception, which is kind of why they became so popular. He was running these videos at the same time as the public perception on conspiracy was changing, especially in the United States, because this was the ringing in of Trump era #1. Oddly enough, in my first year of my undergrad, I wrote a paper about how the Trump campaign team leveraged Twitter and conspiracy to take down the Clinton campaign. And in that, utilized that leverage to dissolve truth as a whole, which is a factor of fascism, which has kind of gotten us into Trump too, blah, 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 blah. I can't find the paper, though. Really annoyed about that because I looked through my Google Docs for like 2 hours. Don't remind me. It was on the hard drive of my old laptop, which sucks because it's like, I wish I could find it. Shane in 2017 was making conspiracy videos about celebrities, and there was this very strange one. I don't know why it went with Justin Bieber in particular, but it was talking about Justin Bieber, George Bush, and Donald Trump, of all people, surprisingly in this context, being like reptile people. And reptile people as a concept has been at the heart of anti-Semitic conspiracy pipelines for decades. Essentially, the concept of why this is able to enact that way is just because like anti-Semitism at its root has kind of always linked to like dehumanization in some context. I talked about recently talking about foodie, my last video actually about Foodie Beauty's bigotry. I brought up, oh my god, and now you guys told me how to pronounce it and I forgot again. Chaucer, I think that says Chaucer. Chaucer's text, the wife of Bath's Tale, stuff like that, talking about, or the Canterbury Tales in particular. Wife of Bastille is just one of them. That's not particularly anti-Semitic, actually, in retrospect, but the Canterbury Tales in general, there were sections where he would talk about Jewish people as these like people who like ate children and all of these very, very crazy anti-Semitic conspiracies that are obviously not true. So that sort of like different being of it all, right? So then you get like witches, you get ghouls, you got like the JK, like how JK Rowling talks about the goblins in Harry Potter. You've got like the you have the, you know, Shylock in Merchant of Venice. You have all these different characterizations. So reptile people is sort of like supposed to be like a more indirect thing, but it tends to always lead to the same pipeline, right?
So we've talked about this theory before. Justin Bieber is not the only person that people think is a reptile. There is a whole theory that all of the most important people in the world and the people that are controlling everything are all secretly reptiles. People think the Queen is a reptile. They think Trump is a reptile. People think Obama was a reptile. But this past week, something happened with Bieber that has got a lot of people questioning. So a website called Perth Now put out a story recently where they said that Justin Bieber was seen in Australia turning into a reptile in front of hundreds of fans. Now the story has some eyewitness accounts, and what they said was fucking terrifying.
There were girls hiding in toilets, crying. Guys were running for the exits, jumping in taxis to get out of there.
And supposedly one of the witnesses said that this is how Justin Bieber looks when he's a reptile. He has a black stripe down the middle and big scaly claws that lash out angrily. Now you're probably wondering, why is there no footage of this? If there were kids everywhere, wouldn't they have been Snapchatting? Supposedly Justin had his bodyguard with him who was screaming at everybody that if they videotaped anything, he would kick their teeth in. Now you probably saw this story blowing up over the last week. It was everywhere.
Beyond this, many of the conspiracies that Shane would talk about just in general were huge reaches with the strangest over-editing and dramatization, and had becoming increasingly obvious that he was just trying to make as much content as possible. However, Shane began getting some more pushback with the conspiracies he was covering, as larger news platforms such as the Rolling Stone would cover the way that these conspiracies were being discussed online, in particular talking about the reptile one with Justin Bieber and Trump and George Bush. In order for Shane to uphold this persona of the soft, relatable person, he would need to reinvent himself again to accommodate this. Now we usher in the YouTube documentary era. As I have discussed before, Shane has strived throughout his career to be seen as legitimate in the classic creator sense, so filmmakers, musicians, artists, in that kind of capacity. Given that Shane's first run with filmmaking did not go well because of his YouTube controversies and his YouTube persona clouding the already objectively negative view of a very shitty movie, also reflected on his writing and producing and overall abilities to create content in general. So the next move, it seemed, was to make himself legitimate as a filmmaker just via his own platform, sort of like a self-publishing moment. First one of these, I would say, is technically the Graveyard Girl channel rehab videos in terms of the documentary format. I feel like the long form format more so started with The Day of the Life of the Trisha Paytas and Jeffree Star, but those ones are not nearly long form in comparison to the Jeffree Star series he did and stuff like that. The docu-series with Andrew and his ever-shaky filmmaking and his beautiful Final Cut Pro license launched an unprecedented rise in Shane Dawson's career, with videos hitting well over 30 million views. And this documentary era ran primarily from 2018 to 2020, with an additional series with Jeffree Star in 2022. I've talked about before the post-2018 Dramageddon and how there was like a very noticeable decline in content with YouTubers collaborating in sort of meaningful senses as like people. There was collaborations in like charity streams and like fundraisers and like or just like subathons and stuff like that, like in garner more revenue or to garner more money for charitable donations or things along that line. But in general, two divas just yapping sort of kind of fell to the wayside in with these bigger creators. Christ, I haven't made, even me, like I haven't made a collab video. Oh my god. I think the last one was with Nick Duramio in 2023. I will say a lot of people, I stopped hearing from a lot of people post the Ethan Klein moment, so take with that what you may. Because this incentive from personal content kind of fell to the wayside because of this idea that like you can get canceled if the other person, you know, if you're just implicated with the other person, Shane's videos sort of promised a more raw behind the scenes look of these creators that people have felt that had been lost at this time. People felt that Shane was able to put forward this idea that he was a trustworthy person, and because he was getting this more behind the scenes view of these influencers, they were willing to kind of tell him more. Even if he could get vulnerable sides of his influencers, like the villains, like like Jake Paul and Jeffree Star, there must be something honest and unique about Shane. That was sort of the way that the perception was being managed at this time.
It was a very like rocky like sort of relationship. I wasn't at the time mature enough to know like how to be a boyfriend. We would always like get into arguments and be fighting and like go through like ups and downs. Like everyone would see it around us. Basically, I did something that I think it was like I did like a bunch of things that like pissed her off, and like she wanted to get revenge, I guess is the word. What do you do to piss her off? It was a combination of things. Like I did, like again, like it was just me like not knowing how to treat her, like me just being like mean towards her, or like saying things in an argument that like would piss her off. Even business things, because she was like a part of Team 10. When we would like not be dating, like I would go and talk to other girls, and yes, she would go talk to other guys, but I think everything just like added up, and it was like this like really bad situation. I think like if someone sat down and talked to her today, she would say like it was a terrible situation. Like we were living together, we were doing business together, we were dating, we weren't dating. I was like her like manager basically. Like it was just a terrible situation, and like I think she would say the same thing till this day. But we would always do shit to piss each other off. And I don't want to like I just never said it before like on camera, but basically she came up with a plan in her head that like she wanted to make me feel the way that, or she wanted me to feel the way that she felt, because she thought that I like hurt her so much, and she wanted me to feel that same pain. Mm-hmm.
The documentaries continued, and they were the videos that drove Shane Dawson's peak, along with kind of how everything went through. But these videos also led to the cancellation in 2020. And of course, with this, I'm talking about the Shane and Jeffree series, particularly 1 and 2. As mentioned, there was a third one later. I have videos on this already, as I mentioned, and I will have it linked in the description. But the events of Dramageddon 2 led to what ended up being called Dramageddon 3, or Carmageddon, in reference to Shane Dawson. What is incredibly interesting about this in retrospect is that the reason why this all happened was because at the time, the perception of Dramageddon 2 was that James Charles was innocent, and it was just a bunch of people who hated him for no reason, which is really crazy to think about now. And in reality, people kind of figured out that it was that Shane and Jeffree were moving into the makeup sphere, and James was going to be in the way, so they needed to be able to kind of like get somebody else, you know? And while people noticed significantly less public communication between Jeffree and James, people had not realized yet that they had actually formally kind of like fallen out behind the scenes, and then that all flooded in with Dramageddon 2, and Jeffree jumped in right away, and Shane was filming it for his series, and he made a trailer for his series with Jeffree that was supposed to like talk about it, but he never did. It was like a whole mess. And spoiler alert to the Bangin Out podcast episode in part 2, but Shane claims that he did not do his 2020 apology video because he was being canceled, but rather that he took it upon himself. This obviously makes zero sense. And the apology actually did come out after Shane Dawson had written this, what people have called the Welcome to the Circus Manifesto, me included, which I read in its entirety in the Dramageddon 3 video. So again, that will be linked down below. I'm not going to rehash it all here, but I'll summarize it. And I will also link the Dramageddon 3 doc because it links to that manifesto directly. The Welcome to the Circus Manifesto was Shane relaying in a sort of ramble that was very strangely written, that Shane went on and on and on about how the beauty community is selfish, vain, and evil. Shane also goes on about James Charles, saying that he needed to kind of be canceled for the reasons that were sort of tangential to it all, and that it was because he needed to be handed a slice of apple pie, the slice of humble pie the size of the Empire State Building, very famous line. And then Shane also admitted that it was likely that Jeffree did want there to be a downfall of James, and that Jeffree was not this like moral or holy person. Shane also said the beauty world is negativity first, makeup second, and that he wanted to make this sort of grand exit, as if the man who did these eye looks is a beauty community diva to begin with.
Do I think Tati is a villain? No. I think Tati was sick of being treated like by so many in the beauty world and finally snapped. And damn, did she f***ing snap all the way off. Holy shit. She really said it and beat her face to the gods and popped on that ring light and went full Game of Thrones on that shit. Say what you want about her in that video, but that will be in the history books. What? She deleted that video. She literally deleted that video, and that video has since been proven that there were false claims made in it. How can you, I don't understand, I don't know if he meant it this way. No, I'm gonna say it. I feel like he meant it this way. I feel like he meant it in a way to glorify that video a little bit, and I don't think that's right when that video had a lot of misinformation in it that was later proven to be misinformation. Hey, sorry, back to my rant. Do I think Jeffree orchestrated this whole situation? No. Tati is a strong woman who made a choice. Do I think Jeffree was also upset by some of the issues with James and some things he heard behind the scenes? Yes. Was Jeffree excited to see a competitor fall? Probably. He's Jeffree Star. What do you expect? I expect him to not try to tear down and ruin the life of a then 19-year-old because he's competitive. That's what I expect. I guess that's the expectation. Don't relish in a person being publicly demolished.
The shitpost adjacent manifesto led to a slew of videos being made about Shane. I think the craziest thing about this all is that Shane in 2026 claimed that nothing happened to lead to this sort of apology video that he made. In reality, what happened was articles about Jeffree Star and Dobby Vanity had come out. Dobby Vanity is a predator. Chris, what's his name? Oh my god, hello. Sit down right here. That guy. The Catch a Predator guy. Chris Hansen, hello. Chris Hansen was doing streams about Dobby Vanity. Chris Hansen put Jeffree in one of the streams. Jeffree kind of just went around the subject the whole time. Then Kat Tenbarge released an article about just a slew of different things that happened with Jeffree Star. And then that sort of built up criticism that Shane was associated with him, and Shane really brought Jeffree back into the mainstream sphere, and also led to Jeffree's peak, kind of being like, how do you not, this should have come up at some point. Then with that criticism drove Shane Dawson writing the shitpost manifesto, and then Jenna Marbles made a video talking about the insensitive content. She sort of did did kind of like a heavy bronzer blackface moment as well. Talked about that in the video. And then Shane Dawson was like, that inspired me. Let me know, by the way, if you want me to unpack in retrospect why Jenna Marbles' apology went over so well. Let me know if we're down with that. Regardless, Shane felt inspired by this and made this apology video, but this kind of made everything worse because of the very jumbled and bizarre way that he conducted himself in this. So this video is called Taking Accountability. This was released on June 30th, 2020. Shane begins by talking about how he has tried to make things go away by deleting videos, untagging himself, and that his old apologies sucked, and that he made them out of fear. So not out of the fact that he actually felt bad for anything, noted. Which he brings this up in the Bangin podcast a lot. He kind of slips and says that this is a time where people want punishment and want to see people who are bad get bad things done to them, essentially.
Right now is very much a time of wanting people to be accountable, wanting punishment for people, and I agree. And that's why I'm making this video. I saw Jenna Marbles' video, and it really inspired me, and felt like a sign from the universe that I want to do this. So this video is coming from a place of just wanting to own up to my shit, wanting to own up to everything I've done on the internet that has hurt people, that has added to a problem, that has not been handled well. Like, I should have been punished for things. I feel like this moment right now is very necessary. I'm gonna apologize for a lot of things that I've done or said in this video, and if you don't accept the apology, that is 100% okay.
Which again, is then not implicit that you actually care about the thing that you're talking about, but anyway. He says he hates his old In the Closet self, and now he can't understand how he was uplifted by an audience for doing blackface. He perceived criticism as people attacking him. He says that he made He had jokes because of how bad his upbringing was and how he had a lot of trauma around it, and that he stopped doing all this stuff years ago, sort of kind of being like, hey guys, like, why are we mad at me? And then he said he was willing to lose everything in his channel, especially because his channel, people were correctly pointing out that it was becoming a saving face for evil white people moment, more or less. The continuous apologies, the adaptation of content, and the change of image, kind of depending on the time in the culture, had all been done to retain this lovable character of Shane Dawson, to steer away from the reality of Shane Ya, which is his legal name. The actual person behind it is what I'm getting at. I also just always remember that what's interesting is that there is a direct example of this to a certain capacity, that he knows that separation, because when he's doing he yells about something, hopefully I can find it, where he goes like, I, Shane Ya, using my legal name, right? So he's saying like, I know as myself as the actual person. But I want to outline in general too, like what a dialectic is. And we're talking about the way that Shane Dawson has conducted himself and the dialectic that he's been upholding. So in the grounds of like rhetoric specifically. Now, some see dialectic as a firmly defined topic, particularly focusing on verbal discourse and the means of balancing knowledge and logic with eloquence. In reality, the dialectic is a very highly debated topic throughout rhetoric and just like across rhetoricians. I'm going to, when we're talking about this, use Kenneth Burke's interpretation. However, this is a very heavy text that's not very, and the contrast of like who he was is like as like a creator versus like these blackface characters was sort of supposed to be like, well, do you see that I'm actually such a nice person, which I always thought was very so drop the book. We're gonna read from A Rhetoric of Motives, page 60. All right, it's also on the screen as well. So when making his claims for the University of Rhetoric in the first book of De Oratore, Cicero begins at a somewhat mythic stage, when right acting and right speaking were considered one. He cites Homer on the training of Achilles. Next, he notes regretfully the sharp dissociating of action and speech, whereby the sophists would eventually confine rhetoric to the verbal in a sheerly ornamental sense. And following this, he notes further detractions from the dignity of rhetoric caused by the dissociating of rhetoric and philosophy. Cicero blames Socrates for this division. Thus, ironically, the Socratic attempt to make systematic allowance for the gradual increase of cultural heterogeneity and scientific specialization were blamed for the very situation which he called it forth and which it was designed to handle. This is what I mean when I'm like, this is heavy. The sentences are very long. Rhetoric suffers by the division, Cicero notes, because there are rises and distinction between wisdom and eloquence, which would justify the sophist reduction of rhetoric to sheer verbal blandishments. Later, philosophy and wisdom could be grouped under dialectic. Dialectic treated as distinct from the ingratiations, of rhetoric, a distinction which the Stoics transformed into a flat opposition between dialectic and rhetoric, choosing the first and rejecting the second. Or dialectic could be treated as the ground of rhetoric, hence as not merely verbal, but the realm of things and the realm of the universal order, guiding the rhetorician in his choice of purposes, as we noted with respect to Augustine. Cicero himself stressed the notion that since the rhetorician must also be adept in logic and worldly knowledge, such universal aptitude is intrinsic to his eloquence. Also, continuing our review, there is rhetoric as the art of proving opposites, as appeal to emotions and prejudices. As agnostic, it is shaped by strongly competitive purposes. On his last score, we might note that Isocrates, responding to the element of unfairness in the war of words, chose to spiritualize the notion of advantage. Pleonexia, I think is how the Latin word is pronounced. While recognizing the frequent rhetorical aim to take advantage of an opportunity or to gain advantage for oneself, he located the true advantage of the rhetorician in moral superiority. He was thinking of an ideal rhetoric, of course, rather than describing the struggle for advantage as it ordinarily does take place in human affairs. But he adds a very important term to our list. Among the marks of rhetoric it is to use is to gain advantage in one form or another. Indeed, all the sources of happiness lived in Aristotle's eudaemonist rhetoric as topics to be exploited for persuasion and dissuasion, could be lumped under the general heading of advantage, as could the 19th century utilitarian's doctrine of interest, or the batch of motives which La Rochefoucauld, in his 213th maxim, gave as the causes of valor of so celebrated among men, the love of glory in which its corollaries, fear of disgrace and envy of others, desire for money, in its corollary, comfortable and agreeable living. I have a stutter, y'all. The worst ways I can read, there's a sentence in French. L'amour de la gloire, la crainte de la honte, le dessein de faire fortune, le désir de rendre notre vie commode et agréable, et l'envie d'embrasser les autres. It's like the way that I can pronounce it in French better, like actually, oh my God, good Lord help me. But point is, there's some words in English, like I get a stutter when I try to pronounce them. There's certain shifts in vowels and consonants that I've never been able to pronounce. Generally a problem. Anyway, that's why I kind of have trouble filming the video sometimes, but anywho. With this section, like obviously I just read for a hell of a long time, so mind you, if you were bored, my bad. What this section outlines in particular is the debate on defining rhetoric and whether logic is innate when you are properly conducting yourself as an orator. Recall that public speaking used to be selective, right? And which I tend to need to heavily interpret, especially classical readings, even Kenneth Burke, because now everybody can just say whatever they want, whenever they want, and somebody will see it. Shane pulled back a little on this sort of soft boy character post 2020 cancellation because of people finding out his role in Dramageddon 2. And the sort of welcome the circus of it all kind of truly shattered the facade to anyone who sort of still believed it. And the Bangin' Out podcast brings out this character in full swing, and he acts like he has never been on camera with anyone else before, constantly diverting, tangents, giggling, and like acting like weirdly coy and childish, even though he's in a room with two people 15 years younger than him. So let's elaborate on that more in part 2. Part 2, the Bangin' Out podcast episode. So I was going to do this section as a sort of reaction section, but then when I watched the episode, Shane is so long-winded and the questions are so softball that I got 15 minutes in and I just stopped and I was like, this isn't worth it. So I'm just going to summarize the more interesting sections. So the title of the podcast is Shane Dawson Breaks His Silence, episode 42, Bangin' Out with Kayla Malik and Jacob Sartorius. And this episode opens with Shane talking about tracking his steps on his Apple Watch, talks about growing up watching the Shane Dawson conspiracy videos. Kayla Malik is quite young. She's like 21, I think. Jacob talks about how Shane was an OG creator, and Shane claims that he had not really liked the attention at the peak of his career when he was getting 30 million plus views. He also says that people build you up and tear you down. Very similar to the comment in the 2020 apology when he was talking about people wanting there to be retribution. Shane is releasing some sort of show called Cancelled, which talks about an A-list celebrity being canceled, and this is just the cycle continues. There's like the Amberlynn Reid cycle that somebody made like a visual for. We really need to make a Shane Dawson one. There's literally the pumping out content, then there's the peak of that content, and then there is the trying to be a legitimate filmmaker, and then there's the cancellation. Like, that is the cycle. That's the 4 parts. Then, as I mentioned, Shane Dawson claimed that he kind of just did the 2020 apology video out of the kindness of his heart or whatever, not because he was being canceled actively yet.
Yeah. I'm assuming that it was loosely based off of your experience with cancel culture, right? Like, I mean, that's what the pilot is somewhat about.
Yeah, and I never thought... Okay, so, yeah, 2020 got canceled, and it was a weird experience because, like I said earlier, it kind of got to a point where I was like, something's coming, and I don't know what that means. But I also was so out of my mind, like working 24 hours a day, editing just too much, like really not in a great place with my relationship because I was just so focused on work and like not spending quality time. I just got to a place where I was like getting pretty stressed and unhappy, and was like, I should take a break from all this, but I couldn't because I felt like I had so much, like, I don't know, just like taking a break from something like that is really scary. Mm-hmm. And then the universe was like, gotcha, and did it for me. But, and it was hard. I don't want to get depressing. It was really hard. And I went through that. Mm-hmm. But I always kind of had a weird relationship with it because I'm not like, sorry, the reason I said it's weird to answer this is because in the pilot, the main character, she's like an A-list actress who gets canceled.
Even though, which I wrote the timeline here, Twitter coming for him because of Davi Vanity articles, finding the old Shane content, then he did the apology video, and then Tati put out Breaking My Silence, and then Shane Dawson had an Instagram crash out, the really famous, you're messaging drama channels. Which, one of my proudest moments of the internet is that I was in that Instagram live. I wasn't commenting, but I was there. Then Shane is saying that people are allowed to be edgy again because he's talking about if he can use the F slur or not, which is so crazy. And I just wrote, that's fascism, diva. Or I said, girl, that's fascism. So there's a quote about this in page 34 of how fascism works, where it says, United States politics has recently been dominated by pro-free speech rhetoric from far-right nationalists. The regular pro-Trump rallies in Portland, Oregon are called Trump free speech rallies. In May 2017, the city was the site of a particularly brutal white nationalist terrorist act where Jeremy Joseph Christian, a 35-year-old far-right nationalist, allegedly stabbed 3 people who tried to intervene as he was hurling anti-Muslim insults at 2 young women. 2 of the stabbing victims died from their injuries when entering the courtroom to be arraigned. Christian shouted, "Free speech or die, Portland, you have no safe place. This is America. Get out if you don't like free speech. You call terrorism, I call patriotism." The chief reason we have free speech and democracy is to facilitate public discourse about policy on the part of citizens and their representatives. But the kind of debate where one shrieks insults at another, not to mention engages in physical violence, and then denounces protests as an attack on speech, is not the relevant kind of public discourse and free speech rights are meant to protect. So let's continue. They talk about Jacob Sartorius' audition for the canceled show that Shane's making. Shane said that 2020 made him want to commit die. And people were taking pictures at his house. Obviously, I don't condone that. I think that's unacceptable. Like, why go outside? Not at Shane Dawson's house, please. Like, touch grass somewhere else. Keeps bringing up how he talked about getting canceled with his therapist. I mean, been there, done that, I fear. Oh, man, my poor counselor was like, what the hell? When I was telling her about things. Oh, my God. Anyway, Ryland is less worried about showing the kids. And then they talk about showing children online. Long rant about something called Susie Cakes, not American, not familiar. They talk about how food reviews were done, and Shane Dawson regretted the food reviews and that it was a dark time for him. I know Shane Dawson's also had history of disordered eating, so that sort of makes sense. Shane made an apology video for the Chuck E. Cheese people because they threatened to sue him, but he never released it, and apparently he's banned from every Chuck E. Cheese, which, like, lol. He's like, I can never take my kids to Chuck E. Cheese. Shane claims that people wake up one day and hate someone and then uses Sydney Sweeney as an example of this.
Or, I don't know. They're very scary.
There's powerful people. Yeah. There are powerful people out there.
So I would say, yeah, if there's any theory that I'm like, kind of fascinated but scared of, it is that. It's like, the pulling of the strings with things like that are interesting. It's interesting when you see a celebrity just get like the Sydney Sweeney thing. I was like, what? So it's like the whole world woke up one day and they're like, we are mad at her. And it was like this whole thing. And it just kind of makes you think like, why?
People just
what
jump
happened?
on the...
You're like, what happened behind the scenes?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
You got to be careful who you cut in line and stuff like that because what if they're so powerful and they're like...
Always tip your Postmate.
Always tip your Postmate.
What are we thinking? 50%? Dude,
this is what I mean, where I'm like, y'all are making conspiracies about Shane's cancellation when, like, he doesn't even give a shit because, like, he doesn't actually think he did anything wrong, even though we have the pedo comments, the blackface, the other racist videos, the slurs, the upholding of, like, Jeffree Star, who's like an evil, racist, misogynistic, vile, decrepit human being. Jake Paul, too, somebody who has multiple different types of allegations against him, including like sexual assault and things along that line, alleged, like that are alleged. Obviously, like, he's never been arrested as far as I know with that. So it's like, no, we've got a multitude of reasons, I fear. Anyway, talked about it being strange that some people grew up watching him and now he's talking to them. Shane went on a podcast because he figured he wasn't going to only be asked questions about people hating him, which was true. Like I said, it was very softball. I talked about the new Escape the Night. There was going to be a Jacob Sartorius documentary that Shane was going to make, and he wanted him to open up about his life more, but then Jacob Sartorius talked about how he felt worried about people taking him seriously because he shit posts a lot. So I don't know, maybe that would come out. I would be willing to review that if it does. I'm very interested. I've talked about Jacob Sartorius at length a couple different times, including a video on him, because I just really think the way that he was treated by grown-ass men was, on the part of those grown-ass men, like, pathetic and vile. And this poor, like, 13-year-old just faced, like, an absolutely absurd amount of harassment. And then Shane talks about spending $2,000 on Hawk to a coin. Okay. Anyway, that's it for the episode. Not a ton happening, like I said. Very light. The podcast episode, despite only having 355,000 views, only in context to the grand scheme of the internet, sparked many conversations around Shane's 2020 cancellation. And this comes from a multitude of different events that came along with this episode's release. Given that Shane Dawson had continued the theme of conspiracy post his conspiracy video era in 2016 and 2018, and he continued post his 2020 cancellation, many topics that come up with his podcast with Ryland, conversations with his brother, and pieces of individual content kind of highlighting these conspiracies, many young people on TikTok began kind of making connections. Shane Dawson discussed the Epstein files in several of his conspiracy videos. Jeffrey Epstein died in 2019 at the peak of Shane Dawson's career, notably when he was not really focusing on conspiracy content at that time. Many other creators who have been canceled have discussed Epstein, and such as like Alex Jones, Destiny Sneeko, stuff like that. But for some reason, it's different when it's Shane Dawson. I'm not really sure what that's about. With the cancellation of Shane being within a year of the death of Jeffrey Epstein, people are now thinking that the cancellation itself can be boiled down to a conspiracy to have people not find out about the Epstein files in a meaningful way. And then obviously this video that I made right now, or making right now, I suppose, because I'm filming it right now, has outlined a pretty decent length what was coming for Shane for a long time, and something that is not new to Shane, which is the aspect of being canceled. In the podcast, the fixation of the so-called cancellations as being people building him up to tear him down is really just a way of separating the cause from the result and kind of shaping Shane as a victim of these things, as opposed to the Black women, the Asian people, the children, all these different groups that were actually victims of his content being the people who face the consequences in a meaningful way. This process in rhetoric in particular is referred to as nominalization, which is reducing a complex, nuanced topic to create a simplified image to fit a narrative, where Shane's narrative is that people kind of get bored every few years and cycle between people they want to cancel and build them up and tear them down, as opposed to actually having like a fundamental reason for doing so. In the case of Shane, it feels like this soft act exists as a framing. It's almost like he's creating a form of normalization about himself, and that he is framing himself as someone who's easy to pick on and someone that is easy to push down where people don't want someone to succeed. But with this, I want to get into those pro Shane TikToks and react to a couple of them. So let's get into that in part 3. So part 3, pro Shane TikTok sphere. I want to watch and react to some pro Shane TikToks and discuss the narratives. Now that we've framed the years and years that built up to the cancellation, the way that Shane's responding to the cancellation now publicly, and sort of kind of how we've all gotten here. So let's get to that. Hey y'all, I can't believe my camera betrayed me like that, because I do this part once I've edited the rest of it, just because I like to have an idea of kind of what I talked about a bit more by the time I get here. What was my focus? And it's like when I do not have time to record it, like there's just no shot. It is currently, checks notes, 6:41 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I have been sitting at my desk since 10:20 this morning. And do I have to work at my full-time job tomorrow? Yeah. And did I work yesterday all day? Yeah. And was I working my full-time job before that? Yes. So we're doing a cheeky little working 11 days in a row. So that's why I'm not filming it, because it's only like 10 minutes of an hour-long video. But I am sorry to y'all. So let's watch a couple of these. I only have 5, so it'll be like a 10-minute section. It's not gonna be too bad. So I just want, this is the theory. This is kind of like what's been going along, right? So it's just like, this doesn't have any, but just saw a theory that Epstein had Shane Dawson canceled because he made ties to Pizzagate and the Jeffrey Epstein in his conspiracy videos. Now, the grand conspiracy of it all is that, what I figured anyway, is that so in the Epstein files, there was comments about pizza, just kind of like passively, and that the Pizzagate thing was something that was, when I talked about earlier with the Trump on Twitter Hillary campaign thing. And now because Shane's talked about it, it is something that people are theorizing. Sorry for the popping. I just didn't. Okay, anyway. Theorizing that, you know, it was like an act of the U.S. government to cancel Shane Dawson. Right? So the whole point of this video is to kind of be like, this is really ridiculous. 38,000 likes, by the way. Yeah, see, racism and making inappropriate jokes, yes. Is this inverted for you? No, it's not. But I do not believe Shane Dawson touches animals. Okay, I don't care about that. Y'all might be joking, but I'm for real. Tried to silence some conspiracy videos were actually quite damning, and a lot of them came true. The thing is, guys, that we need to tap in on, okay, is that these conspiracy videos that he made, this is like me telling a child that Santa Claus isn't real. He found from Google, like he found them from either somebody finding them for him or him just searching up like new conspiracy theories 2017 into Google. Shane Dawson's not the mastermind behind this stuff. Like Shane... Well, this is crazy. Jeffrey Epstein implanting the thought of Shanae in Shane's mind in 2008. Y'all are diabolical for that. Shane was literally why I knew about this years ago, but I couldn't watch him knowing the stuff he did. I remember his theories, but I can't... Yes, and then the video got removed. And then they're talking about, they're referencing here this clip of Shane in the interview. So we're going to watch this clip next, by the way. Talking about him... Oh, jeez. Him referencing it. So, it is really... It's just crazy that, like, as opposed to thinking that somebody was just trying to pump out as much content as possible and was pulling anything they could find from the internet to make their conspiracy theories on, they think that instead he's like this huge mastermind who invented all these things. And I just really hate to burst people's bubbles on that, I will say. But here's the clip that person was referencing.
Doing some bad things, and literally 2 days later I got canceled from this like weird thing where somebody took audio of me and like fucked with it and whatever.
Oh, so what if it was those people? It was an attack.
My therapist was like, I like jokingly said that. I was like, oh, I got canceled for this and whatever. And she's like, what did you talk about? And I told her, and she was like, they don't fuck around. And I was like, ah!
Oh,
and I was like, it's just interesting. Like there are, you know, I don't know. There's
powerful people.
Yeah.
There are powerful people out there.
I did this video
too. Okay, oops, I screwed up. But I want to talk about this a bit more though, because there's a few things with this. Okay, one, he wasn't canceled because of that audio. I cannot stop iterating that. The Welcome to the Circus manifesto is what triggered it. The Welcome to the Circus manifesto, and the fact that he was this is something that never comes up, that Shane Dawson was friends with somebody who was touring with somebody with convictions of SA. That is why, because the Jeffree Star exposés came out, and Shane Dawson for the last 3 years before that, 2 or 3 years, give or take, had insisted on being twinum besties with this guy who is evil. And the unfortunate reality is sometimes in internet culture, you are guilty based on association. But he particularly associated with Jeffree Star. So what ended up happening was that buildup. There were so many things coming, and so many people were frustrated. Because also something else too, it's like by the end of the Jeffree series with the makeup palettes and everything, people were getting really tired. And there was a ton of backlash about clickbaiting the Dramageddon clips and never actually using them. So there were so many things that are just being completely whoop. And that's kind of why I wanted to make this video, because this is like a bit much, I fear.
Because literally the reason why
so POV, the Pizzagate video by Shane Dawson that you watched years ago is scrubbed from the internet. Oh my god, girl, what happened to your television? Diva. Is it clipped on? Sorry. I'm just worried about the music also. Sorry.
Search up the real accounts, all the people might show up.
So they're talking about how they can't find like the actual accounts associated with these videos anymore, and that all these things are being suppressed and hidden. I don't know, like, because I think I really wish we were in a society more built into being able to have multiple things be true at once. And let me see the comments of this one. Shane Dawson is part of the PDFs. Y'all are late. He deleted many videos years ago because he got in trouble and YouTube threatened him and other creators. They stopped paying creators for any videos that were conspiracies. Wait, was it about Chuck E. Cheese? Yeah. Yeah, the apology he made was for the people at Chuck E. Cheese. Another thing is, I do like that there are people that are a little bit more cognizant. Does anyone remember when Shane and Lisa fed that baby a live Taco Bell and then threw it in the pool? And oh my god. Oop, sorry. Scrolling on desktop, like TikTok on desktop, is like actually, babes, Shane is. Yes. Okay. So there's not as much delusion. See, I guess the problem is when I was searching this, like my algorithm was way different like 2 weeks ago than it is now, which is really annoying. But yeah, so a lot of people are talking about, which is another really good point, is the what's it called? The adpocalypse of 2016 that was triggered by PewDiePie and a certain bridge and a certain PUBG match. That being said, the whole PUBG of it all caused for a crackdown on just a lot of different types of content. And with Shane, he made these conspiracy videos, and those were particularly controversial because some of the stuff was just like I talked about, like, for example, where like could be perceived as anti-Semitic. So here's the next one.
Deep into conspiracy theories, like still to this day, very deep into them. I'm just a free thinker. I don't think they're conspiracy theories. I just think I'm ahead of the curve, but whatever. So I used to watch Shane Dawson, even though I was like completely scared based off of the music playing in the background at the ripe age of 11, 12, 13. But now I'm seeing Shane wasn't too far off. Everything that Shane talked about has full circled. I hate that we canceled him, although some of it was within reason. I hate that he doesn't really have that strong of a platform anymore to still be talking about this stuff, and like his videos are like taken down. Like the deep videos are taken down. But his particular video about AI, he has so many that we are now seeing right now is true. Cough, cough, Epstein. All of everything that he was talking about, it is full circle. But the AI, he was ahead of his time with that one. The fact that like AI would predict that like artificial intelligence would be a thing to like be one of like the world's demise. And I feel we're currently living in that time right here, right now. Don't get me wrong. I chat GPT it up. I am part of the problem, one might say. But my chat love me. I'm building an alliance. So as a kid, I was very deep.
Okay. First off, I'm going to be a hater. How do you have, I'm a free thinker and I chat GPT it up in the same video? Clocked. Next. I think there's a few things to talk about. Obviously, for example, I already mentioned that the fact that he was just talking about these things in general is just like a case of the adpocalypse. The thing is, lots of videos. Okay, here's 3 things. People take down videos if they become demonetized because they don't want people to re-upload them and get monetized for them. They're not necessarily getting taken down unless you're able to pull a link and it says like this was removed for community guidelines. That's the only way you can prove it. 2, just because you're talking about something doesn't mean that it's like, so you get talked about something that gets taken down doesn't mean that it's inherently because of conspiratorial nature here, right? So for example, my Colleen Ballinger video got demonetized. Like this, I appealed it and everything like that. It was literally just because of the nature of the content. A lot of people, though, when that happens, they take them down. That's one, and I wouldn't be surprised if Shane Dawson is one of those people. Next, AI conversations. I had to take a unit I took a seminar called Rhetoric Technology when I was in my last year of my undergrad. And there are cyberpunk stories and authors writing about AI in the 80s. That what I cannot stress enough is Shane Dawson is not this pinnacle of conspiratorial genius. He is somebody who was Googling stuff. Now let's continue. This is the last one.
Dawson seems to have learned a lot from his huge cancellation in 2020. I was thinking about this recently because look at all the other influencers, especially like...
This was late last year. This came up and I just wanted to see what's going on.
The beauty YouTubers, Jeffree Star, James Charles, Tati Westbrook, Manny MUA, Laura Lee, Gabriel Zamora, that whole crew, a lot of them, most of them, pretty much all of them have been canceled either once or several times, but not all of them have taken it to heart. I say this because Shane Dawson has really stepped back from a lot of the drama over the past few years, and he no longer makes videos with Jeffree Star. We don't really know the extent of their relationship, and he's had now 2 children with Ryland, and I give him a lot of credit for keeping his kids off the internet. I'm sure many fans were wondering what they were going to do and how they were going to handle being new parents and if they were going to transform into a family vlog channel, but they've actually guarded their privacy, and again, I have a lot of respect for them. When it comes to the world canceled now, none of the people I mentioned, including Shane, were actually canceled. Canceled to the point where you can't pay your bills and you have to get a normal job. No, all of them are doing fine. Dramageddon 1, Dramageddon 2, 3, whichever, took a toll on a lot of these influencers because all their numbers were hit. Their subscribers went down, their views went down, but they're still doing well today. Shane hasn't posted a video on his main channel in over a year, but on his Shane 2 channel, he's been posting every few weeks, and they garner a decent amount of views. Anyone would probably kill for the views that Shane is getting on his second channel now. On his main channel, does he get the views he once used to? No, but he's still doing fine. By the way, I just want to make this very clear. I'm not defending Shane and his past content and any of his behavior. I'm just looking at how he has handled his life and career since being canceled. I think he's shown a lot of growth. I totally appreciate how he respects his
So this has been late last year. I will say I'm not happy about the interview with Jacob Sartorius. I think the whole I'm going to do any sort of dance I possibly can to have it not be just like that I was doing bad stuff and people got mad at me. A little nuts, I fear. In terms of the other stuff, I still think he's friends with Jeffree Star. I think it's just they don't they just agreed that making the videos everyone gets mad and it's kind of stupid. But yeah, that's the nature of what's going on. And yeah, we put it all together. I wish I had pulled the better TikToks. I'm very annoyed at myself. And Elle had collected some, but she forgot to give permission to the drive and she's gone. So she's at work right now, I think, tragically. So I hope all of you have an amazing day. And let's get to the conclusion and end the video. To conclude, we've talked about Shane Dawson's history briefly. We talked about the use of Black women to leverage his fame. We've talked about the form of the character as advantage in rhetoric and moral superiority. We talked about Shane wanting, Shane being our slurs back as a form of fascism. We've talked about kind of the way that people are misremembering the cancellations and the process into creating this conspiracy. And yeah, links, source, ways to support the channel, all that kind of stuff, all down below. Thank you to my beautiful, wonderful, iconic members and patrons, as well as thank you, Elle, for the doc and being slayed wonderful. I hope all of you have an amazing, beautiful, wonderful, iconic day, and I will see you around. Stay woke. Bye.
Take it in. I am getting a divorce.
Get ready with me for Valentine's Day. I need to